Good evening, gentlemen. This is Research Roadshow, News Others Miss. Today is October 30th, the day before Halloween, and we have a scary topic for you today. The guy on my left is Eugene Yu, and I'll tell you a little bit later why he's laughing in this photograph taken in 2005. Today's topic is the company that Mr. Yu used to head, Konnech Voting Solutions, based in Michigan, but with offices in Southern California, New Jersey, Montana, Nevada, and I think 3 other states. We've spent already 11 episodes of News Others Miss talking about Mr. Yu and his colleague. 2 broadcasts ago, we introduced the character of Lionel Nee, and Mr. Nee is I believe, the brains of the operation. Before calling themselves Konnech Voting Solutions, they were known as LJ Connections. And we will get into all of their various connections, and there are many, not only here in the United States, especially on the Eastern Seaboard, but throughout the world. Okay, let's go down a little bit. We'll go over to the next slide. We went to, in the Osprey chat a couple days ago, we were all looking for information on Konnech Incorporated. And I think it was Harry or Christian or Amber that suggested, hey, what about the Secretary of State? So if you go into the California Secretary of State and you look for Konnech, here's what you find. Sorry about this, ladies and gentlemen. StreamYard refused to operate for me at 6 o'clock, and it took a good half hour to get StreamYard convinced that it was really supposed to work. I'll tell you, these these computers are gonna kill us all. Anyway. Well, maybe not kill us. Maybe just injure us so they can. The scientists, the official scientists, can do their thing. All right. So we open up the Secretary of State's office at california.gov. And what do we see? I don't know if you can see that yet. All right, StreamYard's thinking about it. And there we line Konnech is okay. That's located in a little bit later in the broadcast. But what's important right now is I wanted to pull up the certificate. So I go to request certificate. And what do I find? What do my wondering eyes should appear? Remember, we're at the Secretary of State in California. And here we see, well, this is just asking me for my credentials. You know, if you remember, put your login and password. If not, then sign up for an account. But what really blew me away was the logo for the Secretary of State here on the left. This logo with all the dots, what some in the industry would call nodes, and these lines, which are called edges, this is a social graph. Well, it's one type of graph. It could be thought of as a social graph. Why is this so important to our story and about certain cities along the eastern seaboard and the potential role of the Pentagon in all of this? Well, do you remember a few years ago, up until 2020, the LinkedIn profiles, all the LinkedIn profiles had a social graph like this one in the upper left corner as their backdrop, right? When I used to have a LinkedIn page, I had this kind of backdrop. And you can upload your own, but the default is this social graph. Why is this important to our story? Okay, what is a social graph? And why do people who are conspiracy analysts, formerly known as conspiracy theorists, why are they careful to stay off of the NSA social graph as much as possible? Because this social graph is the link. Let me pause this for a minute. The social graph is the bridge between the soft sciences, such as economics, micro and macro, political science, the other soft sciences, and the hard mathematics, pure mathematics. Having studied how human beings think and how human beings behave under certain circumstances, from 1934 till roughly 1998, there was a ton of research done in trying to fit equations into human behavior. And you get into things like feedback loops. That's my background, control theory. Feedback loops, positive and negative, and reinforcement and reward systems, hierarchies of reward systems. The graph theory was the magic, became the magic that allowed the pure mathematicians and thus the computer scientists to be able to predict human behavior, not at the level of the single individual, although they're working on that, but at the group level. For example, people who live in the middle income bracket on the western side of New York City, who live in a certain kind of housing complex. How many times a day do they tweet? Or what is the reward that they get back for each of their tweets? What is the secondary reward that they get for each of those tweets? There could not be Facebook. And remember, much of the information about Lionel Nee and Eugene Yu is being shared on Facebook. So what people believe about this case and the associated cases, like the one in Texas with Correct the Vote. The social graph has received a ton of attention from many different disciplines. So between 1955 roughly and 1985, that 30-year period, there was tremendous progress made in the area of the social graph. Without those accomplishments, there could not be a Facebook, there could not be a Twitter. All you would have is a collection of high school yearbooks neatly arranged on a shelf. Without the social graph theory, you could not manipulate people the way they're doing so right now. People ask us all the time. They write into Research Roadshow asking, help us to understand why our kids believe everything that's opposite of what we believe, about history, about science, about math itself. A friend of mine's daughter, my friend can't help her daughter because they're teaching math in a completely different way. So even the hard sciences are corrupted. Anyway, let's go back to social graph. And I'll explain in a little bit why I'm spending so much time here. I'm sorry if mathematics is not your forte and I'm making you fall asleep here. Bear with me for a while. All right. We have the social graph, and here we have another example. Systems theory. A lot of systems theory involves the social graph or graph theory in general. It's not limited to social graphs. I made a mistake twice in my previous paragraph. The graph theory is important in a number of disciplines. There's the great Harry the Greek. Okay. Deputy DA for Los Angeles County. Deputy DA Eric Neff alleged that the data breach matter if the data eventually show up or in the Bronx. What to and you'll never are being recorded. One gubernatorial, they have the potential how you voted, so they can check your loyalty to certain other people whom you've pledged loyalty to. So it's already significant. We've gone over the six big red flags in this case before. But the fact that this is the larger could be one of the largest data breaches in US history is significant because it leads you to wonder if there's not a massive campaign to break down the fabric of American culture and insert a false history, a false culture into the American minds, and especially the younger generation of Americans. Where else do we see? Let's go back up to the LinkedIn graphs. Where else do we see this kind of logo? Where do we see this graph theory type logo for a large company or even medium-sized companies and many startups as well? It's not just LinkedIn and Facebook. In many of the therapeutics companies in Boston, I can't swear that Beam Therapeutics is one of them, but there are many therapeutics companies that have the graph theory background, because analyzing how people, well, just from the standpoint of how drugs are gain popularity. A lot of drug popularity comes from like that little blue pill. It was word of mouth, and they studied very carefully who was taking the little blue pill and telling their friends about the little blue pill, and which of those friends told other friends about the little blue pill and the effect on their life, how especially their love life could have improved. They study, in fact, you could even argue that the little blue pill was made to enhance, to increase the body of research on graph theory. That's a stretch for now, but it is possible. It's in the realm of possibilities. Where else do we see, besides the Boston area, where we see tons of companies with the social graph or the graph theory background, where else do we find this? Norfolk, Virginia. Norfolk, Virginia. Many, many companies, especially down near the shipyards, have this background. So let's explore the Pentagon angle. Even Breitbart came out a couple days ago. Oh no, it was 9 days ago. Breitbart came out with an article showing that the Pentagon had been working with Konnech Voting Solutions for a couple of years. That's even watered down. The Breitbart article was significantly diluted. It gets more intense than that. There's a much heavier involvement from the Pentagon and from certain parties. It's going to take me a little bit to show it, but we got 32 people working around the clock on this case. We'll eventually show that a lot of people in Norfolk, Virginia, have their thumb in the pie in this whole manipulation, this transfer of knowledge assets, such as that released by Konnech. And mind you, that Konnech is not the only one. Over to parties outside of the counties that are supposed to have the data. Each county is supposed to have their own data in a secure place under a heavy lock and key that outsiders are not supposed to have access to. Even people from other states outside of Georgia should not have access to the voter rolls and other important information about voters or the voting process in Fulton County or DeKalb County, let alone people who live outside the country. Okay, so let's go back down. Okay, maybe it's on the other one. Let's go. Sorry for this, ladies and gentlemen. I had a lot of problems with StreamYard today. I can't imagine why. Okay, let's go back to Mr. Eugene Yu and the reason that he's laughing. BlackRock partners with Konnech to fix the November 8th election. This is in Harry the Greek's second to last post on newsothersmiss.com. And it's one of his better articles. I encourage everybody to go read it. And you say, oh, come on, John. BlackRock, yeah, they're good at financial shenanigans, but could they really fix an election? Or would they have an incentive to fix an election? You bet they do. In every administration, and the people in what is now known as BlackRock, for the past 45 years, each of them has had a hand in government, either on the left side of the aisle or the right side of the aisle. The best example is Donilon, who's been working very, very closely with Joe Biden for the past 30 years. Isn't it Tom Donilon? Okay. Now, going back to Mr. Wu, and we'll get to Mr. Lionel Nee in a minute. The Michigan Economic Development Corporation. Wherever you see BlackRock or a BlackRock subsidiary or a senior BlackRock partner, you're going to find innovation centers. Innovation centers are one of the ways that hedge funds or large financial institutions can manipulate the economic trends in a given demographic area. For example, in South Chicago, by controlling how many startup companies arrive to that area and how many of those startups get an A round of funding and then a B round of funding, they control the economic growth of a certain sector within a certain metro area. And I can speak from personal experience. I've been associated with startup companies for 26 years. I'm still the CTO for Bluebird's technology located in Cleveland, although we've been involved for 6 years. It is very hard if you don't know somebody either in the Donald Wright Patterson in the military space or in Columbus on the civilian side. It's very hard to get startup capital if you're in the aerospace business, or in a company that depends on the aerospace industry. It's very, very, very hard. So let's go back to the start of Konnech, or actually the addition from CJ LJ Connections. It stands for Lionel Jianwei Yu Connections into Konnech through Michigan State University. Okay. Why is it that a foreigner can get so much time and attention from an innovation center? What he has to do is promise to bring a bunch of well-paid jobs to the area, and the politicians and bureaucrats in that region will they'll carve a path to his door, because all you hear about, especially in the larger cities, the Rust Belt cities nowadays, is where is my daughter going to get a job? That's what people want to hear, and so they put pressure on the political class to find and bring forward and promote anyone who promises to create Jianwei, and they moratorium with them because they're promising to bring so many jobs to the area. So this process, this hierarchy of incentives is at the root of a lot of problems. Okay, we have, this is from Harry's blog, again, newsothersmiss.com. And this goes back, I think, to 2011. You have to read the article, but I think that the Innovation Center opened around 2011 in East Lansing, Michigan. The project will bring offshore jobs to the facility in East Lansing that will serve as the company's headquarters. The Michigan State University Foundation. We're going to explore already Charles Ortel, back in 2017, spent a lot of time teaching us how foundations actually work. And it's not that that information that Charles Ortel provided should have gone viral, and we should have had a ton of people in every county or in every metro area talking about certain foundations and where their money was coming from and where their money was going to, and were the jobs created from by the funding that arrives from each of these foundations, were those jobs created producing some benefit, some real tangible benefit to people who are putting the money into those foundations. I know most of my relatives and a couple of good friends have donated a ton of money to foundations such as the McCain Foundation, and they never really asked what they were getting out of it. It's anyway. We'll get to that later. Where is the article that I wanted to pull up? Okay, let's go back to Harry's blog. All right, so I'm going to spend a couple of minutes talking about the incentives. A few years ago, I had a discussion with an economist, and to protect the innocent, I will give his name as Daryl Achemo-Magoo. Remember Mr. Magoo with the big glasses? This is a trick that George taught me, because everybody remembers cartoon characters from their youth. Everybody remembers Mr. Magoo. So Daryl Achemo-Magoo is a very bright guy. He knows far, far higher mathematics than I ever will or ever did. And he's very proud of that fact, and rightly so. He studied very hard to become proficient in mathematics. But Professor Daryl Achemo-Magoo earns $700,000 a year to teach kids about finance. Well, actually, about economics, macroeconomics. But most of what he's teaching the kids is wrong, and provably wrong. Why does he get paid $700,000 to teach these students who are paying very huge? The tuition is very high there. Why is he getting paid so much to teach the kids macroeconomic theory if it's wrong? Because it's based on a low-level set of assumptions, very basic assumptions. And the basic assumption that's wrong is how incentives work, and especially when it comes to rent seeking. Rent seeking, as I found out the hard way, rent seeking is an area that deserves a lot more study in high school. I think everyone should, taking a basic economics course in high school, should spend a little time studying rent seeking. Rent seeking has a lot to do with, basically, it's using a little bit of your capital to get a lot of capital back from the government. And the basic argument between me and Daryl Achemo-Magoo is that young people do not have the incentives that he thinks he has. Now, in the case of a biotech startup, the incentives for a 28-year-old who's going into, he wants to make a career for himself. He's been studying for 10 years all this biology and the application of biological concepts to the real world. Now he wants to get some return on the investment of 10 years of his life. And so I won't say the risk, but the perception of risk is where the heart of the problem lies. The perception of risk is very important, and that's why they have spent so much money on using the advanced graph theory to be able to tip the table, to make the table non-level when it comes to giving out grants to the hardest working kids. So in order to compensate for the risk, you have to have a a financial or other, the financial reward, the financial or non-financial reward has to be outweigh or be commensurate with the risk that the young person, or usually it's a team of three kids, right? It has to be commensurate with the risk that they're taking. And it is people like Lionel Nee and Eugene Yu who are who very easily fall into this trap of seeing a much higher potential reward for undertaking a certain strategy, business strategy, than is actually there. So they think that they're getting into something that's a slam dunk, but later on they find out that someone approaches them and says, "Hey, you remember we gave you that 2 million to start? We dug you out of a hole. You had a legal battle, and we got some white shoe lawyers to get you out of that problem. Maybe you could do us a favor." So slowly, there's a slope, a slippery slope where one mistake leads to another, and you find yourself in a deeper and deeper hole. So you're obligated, not obligated, that's not a good word, but it's so easy to wind up in a situation where very high rollers kind of have you in a bad spot. And you have to compromise your principles in order to just survive. Now, Mr. Yu, in this particular case, I think Mr. Yu has he was a card-carrying member of the Communist Party in Beijing for many years. I think it goes back to before 2005. So maybe that's not his particular case. He might have come into America with the full knowledge, with the intention of participating in this adventure by the Bitcoins. Okay. What I do want to spend some is into Harry's articles in a couple. How shield as a fire actions. Now I have spent 32 years in Italy. I can tell you, NATO has a very big hand in the Italian elections. Every 2 years they are there. Well, actually, it's like every 5 months now, but the NATO presence is very heavily felt. And I have firsthand knowledge from two Army colonels, retired Army colonels, that said that they had some things to do with the movement of certain boxes of equipment and the pedigree, not the pedigree, what am I looking for? The paper trace for those election materials. So it shouldn't be too surprising, or it wouldn't be surprising for me to learn that NATO has a very big role in the election process in 800 counties, especially many of those with a connection to Konnech, formerly known as LJ Connections. And I showed you 2 episodes ago how difficult it was to find Google or DuckDuckGo hits on LJ Connections. Anyway, let's go to the next slide. I think that this is all right. Bear with me one moment while I pull up the other slide deck. Let's go into the chat for a minute. Hello, Kate. Hello, AC Truth. Hello, Charles Yield. All right, sorry for the low quality of production. It's the internet is slower than usual today. So going back to the story of my argument with Professor Daryl Achimo Magoo, it comes down to reward structures. Who decides these reward structures after all? You know, a young man, especially in America, a young man when he's 24, 25, he wants a little bit of material wealth to show his status, to go around and hopefully hook up with a young lady and make a good impression, and maybe settle down and have a family. That it's human nature to want some material benefit for your hard work, right? The problem comes in that it's very, very hard nowadays, much harder than when I was first started out. It's much harder to find an activity that doesn't boil down to rent seeking. It's extremely hard. I've coached many young people between the ages of 23 and 30, roughly, and invariably they say, John, you know, this startup thing is great, but if we have an offer from a medium size or Fortune 500, and if we take the 2 million, then we get to be, we have a senior staff position, and we get a lot of bennies, but they don't see the downside. They don't see the hidden part of the reward structure, right? Like Charles Yield says, they're enticed. They're promised one thing, but they get the bait and switch. So they sell the company for 2 million, and then they find out that it's not what they bargained for. You know, they're asked to do some pretty unsavory things, and especially when you're in the software business. And then either you have a choice. You can do what we ask you to do, or there's the door, right? So this, in the West, it's not just America, but in the West, we have a warped, a contorted reward structure. That's one thing I want to, and so that's the basis of my beef with Achimo Magoo. Let's see, why is it not showing? I'm sorry for the delay. Come on, internet. All right. Okay. I'm having difficulty finding that article that I saw about Norfolk, Virginia. But anyway, a couple months ago, Harry the Greek came out with two good articles about the U.S. Navy handing over a major site to NATO in Norfolk, Virginia. And I highly recommend that everyone go and reread those two articles. And I might have actually gone to school with one of my desk mates at school, might have been a key player in that handover, Mr. Joseph Bell. All right, go back to the Breitbart article for a minute. I'm sorry I'm jumping all over the place, but it's not been easy to follow this case to begin with. It's been impossible to find photographs. I've been working on this for 4 days. I haven't found a single photograph of Lionel Need or of Michael D. Lee, the person who is the registered agent for Konnech Voting Solutions. Very hard to get information on them because, like I said, they would probably prefer this case to go away because if it goes to trial, it's going to show that and people are allowed to testify without prejudice, without some kind of hidden hand at their back. It will come out that there are some very influential people on the Eastern Seaboard and back in Europe who have an incentive to get mixed in with the election process, to tilt the scale, not only tilt the scale in favor of one candidate or another, but to record your votes. Again, the Breitbart article doesn't really dig down very deep, but I suggest to those who do follow Breitbart to read that article. It's a good warmer. Okay, eugenics. Where did I put it? All right, I can't find 3 of the articles that I had pulled up earlier. So I think I will wrap it up and just try and synthesize my real points here. Everyone is on Facebook or Twitter or another social media. In China they have their own. In Europe we have some of our own. But everyone is on a social media of one type or another, and all the data is going to one place, the data beast. Now, all of you know by now that you can find a good deal on Facebook. There's tons of advantages to working on Facebook. I used to be on Facebook for a few years. You say, well, John, Facebook is great. It lets me share my photographs of my kids with grandma and grandpa, and they're 4,000 miles away. So Facebook does some good, but what it's really doing, because of how the social graph works, is that it is studying you to harvest you, to keep you. This is my most important point. You've probably seen films, or if you live out in the country, you've seen it actually in action. How 2 sheepdogs can herd 100 or more sheep over 5 acres into one small pen. How can those 2 little dogs drive 100 plus sheep to a small pen? And how do they do that? Now I think a good analogy here is we have a few dozen robots or androids that are driving 1 million people into this pen or to this pen or to this pen. The cognitive back in 1950, who are getting lead from an Ontario never 16 and the thing. This is why that two people map cannot communicate Facebook thanks to graph is so important. And why do the very MIT and Stanford and Georgia Tech in the area of social graphs or graph theory, where do they go to work? The very top tier goes to Facebook and Twitter. The next highest, where do they go? They go to Norfolk, Virginia, working for some of the Navy intel guys. Like George Carlin said, it's one big club. The big club is using a few androids and social graph theory to herd millions of people into tiny areas of the cognitive map. And the Konnech, the reason the Konnech case is so important. Oh, and I got to bring up one more point. The reason the Konnech case is so important is because the risk is that in a fair trial, the risk is that they will all be exposed, that the dark hand, the role of the dark hand in the election process will be exposed to a much wider group of people. And that would stir real debate on subjects that really matter. And that's what they can't afford. That's why they are putting, get this, correct the vote. I forget the company. It's not correct the vote. I got it here somewhere. Anyway, there's a judge down in Texas who is putting the organization, the two members of the organization that exposed Konnech a year and a half ago, he's putting them in jail for exposing the truth. Where did I put that article? Anyway, it's the second to last article on Harry's blog, newsothersmiss.com. You'll see the judge with a red microphone in front of his face. I can't remember his name. Okay, there he is. Okay, the case is in Houston. And Mike Panzer, if you're listening, please see if you can get down there tomorrow. George Webb might be on his way to Houston for the trial. In case he doesn't make it, I'm hoping you can, Mike. We need you, man. Come on, internet. Hold on. All right, go down to brassballs.blog and look for this one. Judge to hail Houston pair tomorrow for telling the truth about Konnech's Wuhan servers. Let's see. Some of you already know who I'm talking about, the name of the organization. Can you put in the chat the name of the organization that the two that exposed the correct the vote, or gee whiz, I'm having a senior moment. Sorry for that. All right, Kate Gowan says that George Webb is there in Houston. Did Duke conversation on this last hour. Oh, great. So go check out Peter Duke's channel, the Duke Report, and watch George and Peter there, and find out more. If you're in the Houston area, please go down and support George there at the Houston courthouse. I will see you on Tuesday at 6 p.m. the latest. There might be another episode tomorrow, but I don't think we have enough material to go into one tomorrow. I might do a short update based on what George comes out with from the trial. And please say a prayer for these two individuals. I think the lady's name is Engelbrecht, and the gentleman's name, no, I can't get Google Chrome to work tonight. Anyway, see you Tuesday. Remember, keep the faith. Don't give in to fear. And tell everyone around you that they're important, and don't let your personal relationships get impacted by whatever bad news is coming down the pike. That's what they want. They want you to feel discouraged. They want you to argue with your better half. They want you to yell at your kids. Don't give in. Keep smiling. It drives the AI mad. Have a good night, everybody.